Hi, I'm Donna Davis here with Juston O'Dell, and we're taking your questions today. We're talking about what can be a very highly emotional thing in the courts, and that is child support and child custody. So
right.
we'll probably have a lot of questions on that, and we invite you to put your questions in the comments. So how are you this morning?
We're doing very well. Just had a nice little family vacation. Squeezed one in between some court appearances, and so that was very good to get away for a little bit and come back and get back to it.
You got a little sun out there.
Got a little sun.
So let's first talk about, I know your firm does a lot of charitable work. Let's talk about some of the initiatives you have going on right now.
Sure.
The birthdays is a constant, right?
Sure. Yeah, we're involved with an organization called Simple Needs Georgia, and Simple Needs is a great charitable organization, very small, almost like a little boutique charitable organization. And the one thing I love about Simple Needs is that their mission is to fill the little gaps that exist where other services might not help.
Like what? Tell us a little bit.
So if you think about it, there's programs out there to help you with housing. There's programs out there to help you with food. There's programs out there to help you with some of those items, larger scale items. What Simple Needs seeks to do is fill the little gaps, help people get furniture, help people get their yards in shape to go, help people just plug the little gaps. And one of our favorite programs they do is, if you think about it, there's nothing out there for these families in terms of other than the social service support that they get to do a birthday for a child. And really make it a wonderful birthday. Get that child what they want for their birthday. So they came up with a concept called the Birthday Club. And we're part of the Birthday Club. We have been now for years. And every month they send us a family. And a family that has a child or children with a birthday that month. And they send us that kid's birthday list. And we then go out. My office goes to go shopping and get the items that the family wants for the birthday and make sure that child has the birthday that they deserve.
It sounds so basic, but for a lot of children, that's not a reality. And I do have that pulled up on the laptop so that you can see this Simple Needs charity. You can see what they do and see the birthday if we can take a look at that. But, what a wonderful thing to do. And I bet you get a lot of letters.
We do, and it's wonderful
saying thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear back, and it's wonderful, that you're putting smiles on kids' faces. We do the same thing at Christmas. Obviously, they have a Christmas program. But just to know that, on that birthday, that child feels like every other kid out there that gets to have a wonderful, great big birthday and get what they want. So
it can make a big difference in their self-esteem and how they feel growing up.
Absolutely. I had somebody one time that said the number one way to make a difference in people's lives is to make sure that they understand that they are loved and that they have value. And so if you can make a child feel like they are loved and they have value, it's the way to go.
That's wonderful that you're doing that. And also tell me about Mission Marietta.
Sure. Mission Marietta is an ongoing program of First Baptist Church of Marietta. It's been going on for years. It started out of a charitable bequest that was made by one of our members to set up a fund to make a difference in the community. The youth of our church actually run the program, and for a week they go out and do mission projects all over Marietta. We've had teenagers climbing up and re-roofing houses in the past.
Wow.
They do landscaping work, yard work. This year we built a deck, repaired a deck for a lady. We've done home repair work. And we do that, the church that is, does that every year. So they have a big kickoff party. You got to keep the teenagers engaged. You got to keep them excited so that they'll come out. And they have a big kickoff party to start Mission Marietta, and we were one of the sponsors. We put some food trucks out there to feed the kids, get everybody excited for the week. So that's been this week.
That's very nice. I know that you guys ongoingly do things, and through Kiwanis, and just the charitable give back is amazing. But also, let's talk about some child support and child custody issues. Let's talk first about child custody and maybe some misconceptions.
Sure.
What would you say are the main misconceptions that people have about child custody?
It's really interesting. When I started practicing law, which is now 20 years ago, we didn't really deal with child custody. You would have custody cases where it was a pure fight, mom against dad, and there had to be a real reason that you would see it. It was sort of this default, stereotypical mom has custody thing. And we didn't mess with visitation. If mom got custody, it was just sort of understood. Dad got every other weekend, Friday to Sunday and Wednesday night for dinner.
Yeah.
It's just what we did. That has evolved so much. And where we are now is, parents will come to me and they'll say, well, what's the standard parenting time? And I'll tell them, there isn't one. And it's really true. We just don't have a normal parenting time situation anymore. We see more and more blended parenting schedules where you have a parent that might have week on, week off. We have schedules, 4-3-4 schedules, and 5-2-5 schedules, and 2-2-5 schedules, and a lot of things, because what social scientists have recognized, and there's been some studies published on it, guardians ad litem have recognized, judges have recognized in their training, is and I'll just be stereotypical, the custody where mom has the week and dad has the weekends created a phenomenon that we refer to as the Disneyland dad.
Right.
And what it means is mom does all the hard work during the week. Mom does school, mom does everything. Dad grabs the kids on Wednesday night, takes them out to Chili's, feeds them food and ice cream, and then drops them off, and then mom has to get the homework done and everything else. And then dad picks them up for his weekend. They go to the zoo, they go to the aquarium, they go have big fun. They get loaded up with sugar, and then they get dropped off on Sunday night. And it created this Disneyland dad phenomenon where over time the kids said, what? I don't want to live with mom. I want to live with dad.
I never thought about that, but
Dad's
of
the
course,
fun one.
yeah.
We always do fun
Yeah.
stuff with dad. And what it did is it caused the non-custodial parent, typically dad, to be disengaged from the school system, the children's lives. And so what judges and guardians and other people began recommending is, let's make sure that the parents both have custodial time during the week. So a very common schedule we see now is where the non-custodial parent, again, I'll just be stereotypical, dad, has the children every other Thursday all the way to Monday morning. So he has to do Thursday night homework, get the kids to school on Friday, pick them up Friday, has the weekend, and then he's responsible for that Monday morning school as well, which means Sunday night in bed, reset, get the week started. A lot of parents actually love those types of schedules because they both get a break and they both get to stay engaged. And so we're starting to see schedules that look like that more and more. So
How is it for the kids too? Is it better for the kids and their relationships with their parents?
So the other thing we've learned is I don't think people give kids enough credit. And kids are pretty resilient and kids are pretty adaptable. What we find the kids want and what judges are looking for, consistency. So
Absolutely.
if we're going to do a schedule, is it a schedule that it's not ping-ponging? If we're consistent, so in the schedule I just described, Thursday to Monday, oftentimes in that schedule, in what we call the off week, the week that the non-custodial parent doesn't have the kids for the weekend, they would still have Thursday night to Friday morning. And it creates a beautifully consistent schedule. Every Thursday, and again, just be stereotypical, every Thursday, Dad's going to pick me up. Every Thursday. Every Friday, Dad takes me back to school. Every Friday. One weekend, I stay the whole weekend. The next weekend, I go back to Mom's. And in those types of schedules, we see, and there's variations of it. Sometimes we move it to a Monday. Sometimes we push it around. We see that the parents enjoy the consistency of it. The parents enjoy the ability to keep both sides engaged in the process. And at the same time, the kids are, this works for me. I know what I'm doing. Now, when we get to older kids, we deal with situations now where, and I have a running statement in my office, I don't do parenting plans for 16-year-olds. You can't get a 16-year-old to do what you want them to do anyway. You're not going to get a 16-year-old to say, you have to go to Dad's, you have to go to Mom's this weekend. They want to be with their friends. So when we deal with older children, you know, when I've got a divorce going on and we have kids that are 16 and 17 or 17 and 15, we have to get a lot more flexible because they've got their lives, they've got their driver's license, and they're pretty much going to go where they want.
So when the children are young, it seems like it's always, focused on what's the best for the children as far as the primary custody. But at what age can kids be like, well, this is not what I want, and it matters? Because
Right.
when they're 5, it may not be
Right.
what they
So-
want, but...
That is probably the hottest topic in the courthouse right now. The law is written such that a child at age 11 can make an expression of what they would like through an affidavit. And at age 14, they can make an election. Now, neither of those are binding on the court. The court still is the ultimate gatekeeper to make sure that what's happening is in the best interest of the child. But we get a lot of parents that come in and say, first, my child's 14, so they're going to elect the schedule they want. And that's not what the law allows. And the law is pretty clear on that. What they can elect is which parent they would want to have primary custody. And that's it. They can't get into, I don't want to visit with mom, I don't want to visit with dad. All they can elect is primary custody. Now, when I started, again, I'm kind of sounding like a dinosaur, but when I started, that election was binding. It happened. Even if it wasn't legally binding, it happened. The judges now are getting so hesitant about that affidavit and the concept of putting a child in a lawyer's office to pick parents. And I'll share a quick story with you. One of our judges currently, I won't name him, but has described that process as legalized child abuse. He has said, I don't want to see or hear about these affidavits anymore.
I can understand that. And divorces are nasty, and parents can use kids as revenge, and that's
exactly.
That's a lot to put a kid through. I never thought about it that way, Justin.
More and more judges are saying, do not bring me these affidavits. I am so tired of hearing that a parent has taken a child to a lawyer's office and had them choose a parent. And this is what he told me. He said, listen, my parents were separated, and he's obviously grown now. He said, when they both invite me for Christmas, I don't want to pick which parent. I stay home.
And I'm grown, right?
And I'm grown. Me and my family,
right.
When they both invite me for Christmas, it's awkward. I don't want to choose. So we do Christmas at our house that year. Because I still don't want to call one of my parents and say, hey, we're going to spend Christmas with mom or we're going to spend Christmas with dad. And this is somebody who's, well beyond the age of a child.
Right, but we're always like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, so if it makes you feel awkward to pick a parent at Christmas, why would you make an 8-year-old child pick a parent for primary custody?
Yeah.
And so, a lot of the judges are telling us that. We had a judges seminar recently. We go to a lot of the panels and whatnot with our local judges, and they give us feedback on what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and what their feelings are. And in that panel, we had a panel of 5 judges, and 3 of them in that panel said, I do not want to see these affidavits anymore. Y'all stop bringing them.
Wow.
And so this child election law, there was actually some legislation downtown dropped last year that will probably progress. It takes a few years for these types of bills to work through, but that would eliminate that child election right. And I know the Family Law Bar Association and the Georgia Bar Association were very active in supporting the elimination of it. The lawyers don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it when a client says, my child wants to do this, and then I have to have somebody from my office meet with the child and do the affidavit. It's always an uncomfortable thing. And one of my law partners actually made an election when she was a child. She spoke to the judge and talked to the judge about which parent she wanted to live with, and she remembers it to this day.
I bet.
And so,
was she glad that she had the opportunity?
no,
Or do
she says to this day that she wished she never had done that. And so I would tell you that we will probably see that child election process go away, and I think it'll be a good thing.
Yeah. I think by the time they're 14 and 15, like you said, they'll start to express themselves, but to call them in and really ask and all of that could be very emotional.
And there's another vehicle, and it's a guardian ad litem.
Right, and I wanted you to explain that then.
Sure. So, and that's really the role of the guardian ad litem in these cases. So, in a true custody case where there's a lot of information, a guardian ad litem, who's typically a lawyer and a family law lawyer, is appointed by the court. And the guardian ad litem is trained. They go through guardian ad litem training, and they're trained, and they are the child's advocate representative. So they are charged with helping the court find what's in the best interest of the child. And they really have a two-pronged purpose. The first prong of their purpose is to make an investigation. If you think about it, in a custody trial, it could go on for days. I could drag in all the neighbors, all the children's friends' parents, the school teachers. You could really start putting up a lot of evidence about what's in the best interest of a child. Well, that's 1, time-consuming, and 2, disruptive to a lot of people who don't want to be in Joe and Sally's divorce case, right? So the guardian ad litem is a fact finder. So they first and foremost go out and they talk to the counselor, they talk to the teacher, and those people can open up to the guardian a little more than they might if they were sitting in a witness stand in front of the two parents. They'll talk to the children's friends, parents, and then most importantly, they'll talk to the children. They do it in a very trained, non-confrontational. A lot of times they don't even introduce themselves as somebody from the court. They're just a friend. I'm a friend of your parents and I want to talk to you a little bit. And they're trying to suss out and help the children communicate with what their desires and wishes are, what they like, what they don't. The guardian can make recommendations. Let's try this parenting schedule. I want to see how the children do. Do they like it? Do the schools like it? Do we consistently have a problem that the homework is always late on Friday? The kid is always late on Friday? Well, then maybe we need to look at a Thursday night problem. And then the second thing the guardian does is report to the court. So they come back and they file a report with the court that says, here's my investigation, here's all the witnesses I talked to. If they were all in this courtroom, here's what they would tell you. And based on all of that, here's my recommendation. Here's the custody recommendation I have, and here's the parenting plan recommendation I have. And courts more and more are using guardian ad litems, and they're using them for that purpose. Even if it's not a true custody case, even if it's a case where I have a case right now where we're trying to help hammer out the kids are very active, lots of extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
And that creates pressure on an intact two-person household.
Yes.
So now we got split households, and we got a guardian that's trying to help these parties navigate a schedule. It's not really a custody case, but how do we help them navigate just managing their schedules? And the court doesn't want to be involved in that level of minutia. So there's a guardian ad litem that's helping them. And so I think what we'll see is the process of having children make elections and talk to judges directly go away. There was a provision that we rarely see used anymore, but there's a provision that children could actually be brought to court and talk to the judge in chambers. And that's gone. I haven't had that request made or that request in years, but
Yeah.
It used to be fairly common. Judge, we brought the child up, the child wants to talk to you, and judges would talk to the child. And like I say, I haven't seen that in a long time because that's a really pressure-packed thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we'll see the affidavit of election go away.
You make such a good point. I've had friends go through divorce. They had talked about, well, when my kids get to a certain age, they can say who they want to live with. And I never really thought of what a destructive thing to do to a child.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, the child is literally expressing, I pick mom over dad, or I pick dad over mom. In addition, when you look at that age, 14, and I've got a child who's 13, getting ready to be 14, it's a very self-centered age for children. Even good children, even great children, are very self-centered at that age. So, literally, we've had it happen where kids, get mad. They have a fight with mom or a fight with dad, and then next thing you know, they're electing to go live with the other parent.
Well, and sometimes my sister's had some guardian ad litem roles that she's played. They want the most lenient.
Yeah.
Mom makes me do my homework. Dad lets me do whatever
That's
I
right.
want to, and she's like, they're not going to make this decision.
We've had, hey, I give your mom this many dollars every month in child support. If you came to live with me, I won't have to do that. I could afford a car.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of manipulation can go into that, too.
And, you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And to tell a 14, 15-year-old child, hey, here's a great idea, you pick.
That was terrible.
I just think it's going to go away.
Yeah.
And we'll see the role of the guardian ad litem continue to play out. And most of the time now we see, too, with, when children get to be, like I said, 16, 17, the judges aren't going to dictate it anyway.
Right.
If the 16-year-old wants to get in their car and go spend a week at dad's house, have at it.
Yeah.
Absent some finding that there's some reason to be concerned, by the time children really get to the upper age of minority, 16, 17, 18, they're kind of doing what they're going to do anyway.
Are you still seeing, 20 years ago, you just saw that mom almost always got primary custody. Are you still seeing mom more often than not get primary custody?
Well, everybody kind of defaults to that, and they say, well, mom always gets custody. Well, in where we are today, in your typical household, mom is what we call the primary caregiver, right? We don't deal with a lot of situations where we have a stay-at-home dad. We still see a good bit, although it happens, we still see stay-at-home moms who had a career, gave up the career, raised children. And so in that situation, it creates a default. Mom is probably the primary caregiver, and mom is probably going to have some degree of primary custody, absent some sort. So that's what sort of perpetuates
Right.
that notion that mom gets custody. But what I try to tell everybody is we need to stop viewing custody as a zero-sum game. And people in divorce always view it as every one day you have is one day that I don't. And it's really not. With the kids' schedules these days, my parenting plans all say that both parents have the right to be at all the children's activities, practices. So, I mean, we're really literally now just talking about where the child's head hits a pillow. I mean, you know, it takes two parents to get the children from school to their activities, home from their activities, homework done. All of that is a two-parent role. And if both parents are willing to step up and be involved in that, I mean, you could be somebody who doesn't have primary custody. Let's say you have my Thursday to Sunday schedule or Thursday to Monday schedule that I described, and you still see your kids 6 days a week because you go to their baseball practice. You go to their baseball game. I mean, you're still, you know, seeing them constantly. And so it really is not the zero-sum game that people want to make it anymore. It's a schedule that is centered around what's best for the children, and candidly, how do we get them where they need to go? I mean, we design schedules around activities. I mean, child has tennis practice on Tuesday nights. All right, well, dad lives next to the tennis center, so let's put the kid with dad on Tuesday nights. I mean, you know, we're just trying to be more practical and proactive in these schedules rather than just slap down. All right, here's the standard default schedule. Y'all go live with it.
Yeah, I always think there's so many children of divorced parents now that the one quality you will definitely, I think, see in these is adaptability. They're like trying to get ready to go to dad's, trying to get ready to go to mom's, sometimes different school districts.
Yep.
You know, they live outside, you know, with one parent outside their school district and have to be brought in, and then they're taking the bus.
Yep.
They are going to be very adaptable and resourceful, I
Yep.
think.
And very resilient. I mean,
Yeah.
they just roll with it. And, you know, look, the reality is in where we are today, just as a society, you're talking about a situation where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe they had 4 friends in their class who had divorced parents, right? Now, it's going to be half.
Yeah.
So they're not the only one dealing with
Right.
this. So when they're talking to their friends and saying, oh, I got to be at dad's tonight, or I got to be at the kids, that's normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily a great thing that this has become a normal, but it's normal. They're not the odd kid that, oh, you don't
Right.
live with your mom all the time, or you don't live with your dad all the time. They got friends that are all in this exact same scenario, and it's just normal.
Yeah.
And so there's no stigma, there's no off-putting, there's nothing unusual about being that kid, and so they just bounce along with it.
Yeah, I guess that is the one way to look at it, definitely. So I also wanted to ask you about child support.
Sure.
And so how is that calculated,
Yeah.
or how is that done?
So about, oh, good gracious, probably been 10 or 12 years ago, Georgia switched to what's called a dual income model. Okay, so we previously had a single income model, meaning we looked at the paying party. In other words, if dad is going to be paying child support, we looked at a percentage of dad's gross income. And so, I forget the percentages now. It was, for one child, 17 to 23%. For 2 children, it was 23 to 28%. I think that's right. And then 28% and up, depending on if you had more children. And then we could deviate from there. The law allowed us to say dad has a really, really high income. We should deviate, or dad has a really low income, or other reasons we needed to go outside those percentages. But that was it. Georgia went to a dual income model. We now have, it's online, people can play with it. It's the Georgia Child Support Calculator. If you Google it, it'll come up. The state of Georgia puts it out there through the Department of Children's Services. And so we now put in both parents' incomes, and they use a metric that creates what, and it's actually a DHS guideline, what would be the representative portion of their income that should be allocated to support children based on their combined household income. So if we have a working mom who makes $50,000 a year and a working dad who makes $150,000 a year, we got a combined household income of $200,000. The worksheet might say for 2 children, the necessary amount of that should be, I'll just pull numbers out, $2,000 a month for child support. Of the household income, Dad in that situation is making 3/4 of the household income, so he should pay 3/4 of the $2,000. Child support is therefore $1,750.
How did that go over in cases that were already calculated? Did they have to go back?
No going back unless they come back to modify it.
Okay.
So parents can come back and say, things have changed. He's making a lot more money. I'm making a lot less money. Whatever. The payor says, I lost my job. I took a pay cut. Whatever. I need the court to look at this again. So
But this is just now going forward when you go
and
through.
and it's been in place now. We don't see many decrees anymore under the old rules because most of those children would have aged out. I mean, it's been 12 or 13 years since we got the child support calculator. So almost all the children who had child support calculated under the old rules are aged out. Everything now is under the worksheet. And so this worksheet then looks at all the children's expenses the same way. So if we have private school, we allocate them by percentage of household income. If we have extracurriculars, and listen, the extracurriculars have exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be
Yes.
the kid plays baseball, it's $25, to sign up for Little League Baseball. We have parents now that travel baseball, travel soccer.
Yes.
It's not uncommon for us to see household expenses of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year on extracurricular expenses for children. Those are allocated back through the worksheet by percentage of the income. Uncovered medical expenses, deductibles, co-pays. We deal with FSA plans. How do we allocate FSA?
It's gotten a lot more difficult, hasn't it?
Correct.
A lot more to it.
A lot more technical.
Yes.
Like I say, it used to be, if Dad made $100,000 a year, we take 20% of that. It's $2,000. We're done.
Yeah.
There's child support. Now, I mean, it's literally, it's a technical process of taking people through the worksheet and deciding. And some parents want to take stuff out of the worksheet and split it on their own. And that's not uncommon. If we have a situation where we have a mother that doesn't work, so she has zero income, right? Well, Dad's going to push back and say, well, I can't pay 100% of uncovered activities and everything else because then she'll just sign them up for everything.
Right.
So every time
And I've heard this from friends who
Every-
are in that situation.
every time they sneeze, she's going to run them to the doctor
Right.
because I got to pay 100% of it.
Right.
So even within the worksheet, we negotiate, all right, she'll pay 50% of the activity cost to keep a reality check there if he'll pay an increased portion of the medical cost. It's all a balancing act.
Everything's a negotiation.
Everything is, and everything's a balancing act to try to figure out what works for their household. And so the child support calculator, I think when they promulgated the child support calculator, they thought this was going to simplify child support because you just, in their minds, you put the numbers in a spreadsheet and you get an answer. What they didn't realize is if you give more people the opportunity to fight about more inputs, right, the more inputs there are, the more opportunities there are for disagreement. And again, that's where, lawyers that are experienced can say, I can tell you what I've seen work, and I can tell you what I've seen come back.
Yeah.
We've all had cases where the people come in and they say, hey, we did this, and the first thing out of my mouth was, who recommended that? Because I could tell you immediately that was not going to work.
Now, are these federal guidelines or state?
State of Georgia guidelines.
Yeah.
But they're modeled after a dual income model that is used in a lot of other states. Georgia was
Right.
sort of the exception to use a single income model when they went to the dual income model. Now, I will tell you, practical effect of the dual income model is it makes life harder on stay-at-home mothers because they're either put in the worksheet at zero, and then everybody realizes there's an inherent problem with zero expenses, so they're paying some portion of expenses that the worksheet really wouldn't expect them to pay. In addition, we see a problem, so what often happens is they're imputed income. So it's not actual income, it's you're capable of earning this amount, and then you have to go out and meet that goal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the judge can find, well, at a minimum, I find you could make $12 an hour. And they'll impute that into the child support worksheet and set child support as if you are making $12 an hour. Meaning you got to go
I
now.
had no idea.
You got to
about
now
all
go
that.
out and make $12 an hour. And
Is that regardless of how many children you might be caring for?
it's whatever the judge finds you're capable in that situation of earning, and it's very.
And then did they calculate the child care that you might have to have?
That's the next thing that comes in. The first thing we do a lot of times when we come in is, we have a guy. I'll stay stereotypical today, and he says, "Well, she can work. I shouldn't have to pay all that.
Yeah.
She used to make $50,000. Put $50,000 in there." And I'd say, "All right. Well, you've got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we put $50,000 in there for her. Let me put childcare, which by the way is about $1,500 a month, in there for the 2-year-old, and ASP, which is $7 a day, in there for the 6-year-old. And now, even if I put her in there, because you make whatever you make, you're 75% of the household income. So you're going to pay 75% of all that childcare. Most of the time, it's cheaper to leave the wife at 0 and not pay the child care. I've explained to people, she's just working for child care.
Yeah.
So walking people through those calculations, understanding how to run the calculator, understanding how the process divides expenses, that's a lot of what we do. We run scenarios for people and say, all right, well, if you go back to work, we put in child care, we put in your other child care costs, and then you still have the uncovered time, and the worksheet has a box for it. So there's no child care during Christmas break.
Yes.
You want to run up a bill, find child care that operates when the schools don't.
Right.
Now you're into a nanny situation, or you're into true available 5 days a week, no matter what, child care. And then, oh, by the way, there's child care when the kids are sick, because if the kid's sick, you can't go to daycare. So
Right.
what's our plan for our working parent when the kid is sick? We got to build that child care in. Do we have a private sitter? Do we have a nanny? I had a case where we negotiated, the parents actually had a private driver to help with childcare. A person that they paid that literally picked the kids up.
If you have 2 parents with demanding jobs, which the whole thing I would think came out of, there are cases where the husband and the wife are both making pretty same income.
Right.
They both have demanding jobs. You can't just leave and go, oh, I got to go pick up the kids today.
That's right. If you're
So I get it.
There's a lot of professions where the school calls at 2 o'clock and says, your kid's sick, you need to get down here and get him or her. A lot of jobs don't let you just say, okay, I'll be right there. And so you have to start factoring all of that into our child support, all of it into our custody calendars, all of it when we deal with those eventualities, particularly for households that are not living that reality. So households that live that reality have kind of figured out those problems.
Yeah.
And we can keep those things in play. They've got a parent, oh, if that happens, mom gets the kid, because they've lived it.
Right.
But when you have a household where it's like, oh, well, she's just going to go back to work, they haven't lived through those problems. They haven't lived through those scenarios. What do you do in the summer? What do you do for camp? A lot of camps end at like 2 o'clock. Who goes and gets the kid from summer camp at 2 o'clock if it's a day camp?
And if you don't think those things out, you're constantly fighting, and your kids are listening to you constantly fight over their issues.
And worse.
And feel guilty sometimes over that.
And worst thing that happens is you're back in my office. And I tell people, part of the goal is I don't want to stay in your life. And you don't want me to stay in your life. I would rather use our experience, the experience of the attorneys in my office, and let's see, we've dealt with this a lot, and we've seen what's come back. So we can help you think through some of the things that you may not have thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so complex that I can imagine it's more of an investment for the parents on the front end, but if they don't do it, there's a lot of ramifications for that too.
Yeah, we
that
see
you'll be back and fighting with your attorneys and with court and.
Yeah, we see a lot of them, where they tried to do it themselves, and sometimes that's a good idea, sometimes it's not. And they bring back in, or we went this, we thought through it, we didn't have an attorney, or we had one attorney that was representing her. A lot of people don't understand they can't represent both of you. And they drew this up, and, we did it for $750, and I'm like, well, it's about worth that, because now you're spending thousands of dollars with me trying to undo it. And it's a whole lot harder for me to undo something that's been in place and then put something new back in than it is for me to start from scratch and have us work with you and figure out what's really going to work right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are ambitious, they're aspirational, there's a lot of things that go into it. Guilt, if there's some kind of wrongful conduct in a divorce, a lot of times we see people that don't want that exposed, and so they just sign away, I don't want to fight right now because it's not a good time, because there's a lot of bad stuff I've done. And so they just say, she puts it in front of me and I'll sign it. And then we see those come back because they signed
They
on.
see it in practicality and they live it, and
That's right. They signed on to something that's completely unworkable, and now we're back relitigating it and dealing with it again, you know. Or I have a lot of people that it's great, you know, and I tell everybody that comes through. I met with a person yesterday. Just because you're hiring me doesn't mean we're going to start fighting. I mean, there's a lot of cases where me and another lawyer that I work with a lot sit down, hey, let's figure this out. You know, he's committed to figuring it out. She's committed to figuring it out. We're just helping.
yeah.
And our goal is not to cause a fight. Our
Yeah.
goal is to help them understand things that they may not have thought of.
All right, I have to ask you this one thing. We're actually over time, which is fine. I was wondering if we had any questions. We don't have any questions, but be sure to ask your questions because we're almost out of time. But I just have to ask, have you ever had a case, or any of your associates, where people went in wanting a divorce, they saw the ramifications of all how their life was going to change, all the money that they were going to, everything, and then they said, let's work this out?
Yes,
It
reconcile.
has happened?
Reconciled at the courthouse steps the day of their final trial.
No way, really?
Had that happen twice.
Really?
Yep, the day we were supposed to go to court to do their final divorce, they they spent the weekend together, and called us Monday morning and said, we're back together, dismiss everything. That was one. The second one reconciled at the courthouse.
Wow.
We were at the courthouse ready to try their case, and they started talking in the hallway, decided they wanted to give it a shot, and we never heard back from them, so it may have worked out. We've also had divorced, then get remarried.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So they actually went through the process, got divorced, then we find out later they reconnected, remarried.
Yeah, you know, I think that sometimes people do think the grass is greener. And then when you see all this on paper sometimes, and then
Right.
you see that your life is not going to be like what you
That's right.
imagined in whatever way, but maybe you just decide that you still love each other. I
That's
don't
right.
know, but I just wondered if it ever
It
happened.
happens.
Yeah, and
It
you're
happens.
like, thanks for all that money.
Yeah, we're here if you need us. That's right.
All right, well, we don't have any more questions or anything, so anything else that you want to talk about or say?
No, I appreciate it. I know we're a little
Yeah.
over, but I appreciate it. And like I say, we're always here to help. You know, reach out. And I tell a lot of people, even if it's just to consult with us, even if you just want to come in for an hour, we're happy to meet with you and explain the process.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
A lot to it.
All right, thanks, Justin, and we'll see you next time. We're here every second Friday morning at 8, second Friday of the month morning at 8 o'clock. Thank you.